From Topeka, Kansas, in the Topeka West studios, this is Topeka West Now, featuring Mr. Chris Perry.
Hello, and welcome to Topeka West Now. I'm your host, Aidan Bly. The mission of this program is to discuss world, national, and local issues happening in the now. Topeka West students and staff will help in that discussion through man-on-the-street type comments, and joining us in the discussion is our local expert, Mr. Chris Perry.
Thank you, Aidan.
So we're going to dive right into it if you're ready.
I'm ready.
So our first question is in the international scope. Our man on the street, Aaron Main, asked Topeka West Charter students and staff what they know about the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Let's watch.
Do you know anything about Russia and Ukraine and the conflicts they have?
Yeah, currently in the Russian-Ukraine conflict, there's the area of Crimea, which Russia believes currently belongs to the Russian people and the Russian government, when there are still many Ukrainians who live there. And that's what the conflict is that Russia believes that that land rightfully belongs to Russia. Honestly, Russia basically believes that all of Ukraine belongs to Russia, but, you know, don't quote me on that, because that's not probably actually true.
I don't know anything about it.
That it's violent and that Ukraine needs to step it up.
I haven't been keeping up on that recently, but I know that a Russian, what's he called? I want to say diplomat. It's not diplomat, though. A guy who opposed what was happening with the Putin administration. I know he recently got killed, and that's some scary stuff. I hope that the United States kind of stays where we are right now. Our current policy, I believe, is just to kind of see what happens and say things like, stop it, no, you know. So I hope we continue to do that, because I think we got plenty going on here, and it's scary what's happening in Russia right now.
I honestly don't know anything about it. I just found out.
A limited amount. I know there's a lot of violence there, and I know there's concern for the stable activity of the world based upon those areas and a few other key areas. They're looked at key areas. I know that much. Not much more than that.
Okay, Mr. Perry, those are the comments. So what is your reaction to what our Chargers had to say?
Well, you know, I think Jacob was, really spot on. He gave a really good kind of backstory of the conflict, in the region between Russia and the Ukraine. And I think that Ms. Sturgis was exactly right when she said, that America is really in a position where there's not a whole lot, in my opinion, that I think we can do. So I think the man on the street, the comments that were given, were really insightful.
I also enjoyed Jacob's comment because personally I didn't really know much about it between like the last month or so. He really helped me get some of the backstory, and the first time I heard about it was when that plane was shot down over Ukraine. I didn't know anything about that even. So what do you personally think about this topic?
Well, I think that, the United States, really since the end of World War II, we've been thrust into the role as, the world's policeman or big brother, whatever you want to call it, whatever role, whatever, label you want to place on that role. And I think one of the areas where we really can't exert a whole lot of influence is in Russia. They really kind of have us over a barrel, and that barrel is oil, in that economic sanctions, like we use, against some countries like, Iran, we used against Iraq, we try to use against North Korea, but we just kept giving them way too many chances. They really don't, I don't think they would work in Russia because a lot of European oil comes from Russia. And, for us to try to place sanctions on Russia, they always threaten, well, if you do whatever, then, we're just going to withhold our oil, and which would throw the world economy into chaos. And, it's just one of those areas where, as a humanitarian, it would be great to go in and do something to help the Ukrainians. But I just don't think there's a lot we can do.
Yeah, and Ukraine especially is in particular danger because of this, because they are so heavily dependent on Russia for both their economy and, of course, like you said, their oil.
Yeah.
So, do you think that the United States is in any danger at all from this?
No, okay, well, I'll say no. But one of the things that is interesting that no one brought up, and it's one of those things that a lot of us in the West don't know, is that a lot of the old, from the Soviet Union, a lot of their missiles, their nuclear tipped missiles, were placed in the Ukraine, and so, in my opinion, that's the danger, to make sure any of those Soviet era missiles are secure, that some faction can't get hold of those missiles, and that this conflict doesn't somehow make it so those missiles, that technology is in any danger. So, of course, again, we care about the Ukrainian people. We, the bloodshed, the violence, of course, it's not something that anyone wants. But my fear is that, those missiles and that technology remain secure and safe.
Yeah, of course. So, I know you said that the United States really can't do much in this case, but if there is anything that we can do you have any ideas about that?
What can we do? You can't. I mean, I guess if you wanted to try to send economic or excuse me, not military, medical aid to the Ukrainians, I guess you can try, but we can't. I don't think we can afford to make the Soviet Union, an enemy at this point. I don't think it's wise. And I think our dependence on foreign oil. This is one of those times where that dependence kind of comes back and bites us, because I think it backs us into a corner where the things that we would like to do or we do in other places, I just personally don't think it would work. And of course, I'm not an expert on the Ukraine or not the Soviet Union, Russia. I don't think that we have a whole lot of wiggle room or things that we could do in this situation.
Yeah, I see. Well, thank you very much for your viewpoints on this very difficult global situation. Do you have any final thoughts you would like to add?
Well, again, like Ms. Sturgis said, this is a lot more complex than anything that has been talked about really or even mentioned on this program. But it's one of those things that, as citizens of the world, it's one of those things that, we really do need to, stay up on, keep apprised and know what's going on, because things don't happen in a vacuum anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, things that are happening in the Ukraine and Russia, wherever, usually those things do affect us in some way. If nothing else, the price of gas, which we in America, we hate when gas prices go up.
Of course.
So I just think it's one of those things that we, a lot of the men on the street, a lot of the kids didn't know what was going on, had never heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's one of those things that you need to kind of pay attention to.
Yeah. So, do you foresee this conflict coming to a peaceful close anytime soon, or possibly a violent outbreak? Well, more violent.
If I was voting or betting, anything like that, I would say the violence would escalate before things calm down.
I see, that makes sense. Well, when we come back, we're going to tackle the national topic of vaccination and whether or not it should be enforced. So stay with us for more of Topeka West Now.
Quiet, please. Wait a sec. I'll take one. Oh, yeah. All right. All good. Take care. Way to go. Nice. Bring it on. Gotcha. I'm here for you. Oh no. Please, please, please. I'm waiting. Interesting. Not buying it. Not fair. That's it. This conversation is over. Oh, brother.
Body language can tell you all sorts of things.
I'm having a stroke. I'm having a stroke.
Know the sudden signs. Learn fast. F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time. Time to call 911 immediately. The sooner they get to the hospital, the sooner they'll get treatment. And that can make a remarkable difference in their recovery. Learn the body language, the sudden signs, and spot a stroke fast.
Every day across America, excess food is gathered by a network of good people at local food banks, giving hope to millions of children who struggle with hunger. They've earned their wings, and you can too. Together, we can solve child hunger. Support Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org.
Welcome back to Topeka West Now. The next issue we have is national in scope, the topic of whether or not people should get or possibly enforce vaccinations. Because there have been a few cases of diseases being spread that could have easily been prevented, and discussions of possible outbreaks happening, such as events like there's this thing called PAX Pox, which is a convention and just people get sick there because someone gets a virus and they just spread it around to everybody, and the Disney World flu and that kind of stuff. So let's take a look at what some of our students and staff throughout Topeka West Campus had to say, and after we heard from them, we'll discuss the issue here in the studio.
How do you feel about vaccinations, and should it be enforced?
Oh, absolutely. I think they should be enforced. I remember when I was a kid, I can remember going with my parents to the National Guard Armory, and, you just knew you were going to get them. It was for the good of the country. It was for it was health. This is important for me to help my classmates to be vaccinated. It's, in my opinion, it's irresponsible not to be vaccinated when you know that it's, in fact, something that will be helpful.
I think it should be enforced because it wouldn't be normal if we didn't get vaccinations, and things would go bad if we didn't get vaccinations. I think people are just being dumb and ignorant about it.
Well, I feel it's important to get your vaccinations just so you don't cause a big outbreak and get everybody sick. And if it's enforced by law, I don't think it's that big of a deal, but I mean, it's a good idea to get them.
Absolutely. The whole vaccination issue really boggles my mind, that the idea that people still believe that not vaccinating your children is still like an acceptable thing. Like, I understand the whole privacy, and you need to be able to be able to do what you want with your child, but when it comes down to people literally not being safe and having ailments and spreading diseases in classrooms because your kids are getting educated, that puts other children in danger. That's not okay.
Do you want whooping cough?
No.
I don't either. So yes, my policy, vaccinations, good. And also there's no scientific evidence that says that vaccinations cause, I think the anti-vaxxers, their big thing is that vaccinations cause autism, right? Asperger's, that kind of thing. That's junk science. There's no scientific evidence of that, right? Ask if I'm wrong, Miss Volland, then just, edit this out, right? But I'm pretty sure that that's correct. Okay, so vaccinations, good.
Okay, Mr. Perry, you saw the comments. So first, what is your reaction to what our chargers had to say?
Again, I think very insightful. The ones who had an opinion, all like I do, think that it's irresponsible to not be vaccinated, not to have your children vaccinated if you're a parent and you have young children, and I agree with them 100%.
As do I, completely. Yeah. So, what is your full opinion on getting vaccinated?
Well, when we were talking during the break there just a little bit, and the Dutch have done experiments, and the Dutch are, that society is really a good one to look at because 100% of their population are, vaccinated, and they keep records of 100% of their population. And their research showed that these vaccinations don't show any increase in those who have been vaccinated, autism in those who have been vaccinated. And so, to me, it's kind of like when the argument was going on about climate change, and this happens a lot. When you have lay people who are trying to make policy that are getting information from experts, scientists, doctors, whatever, who are the ones you ought to be listening to. But these lay people who are making policy, instead of listening to the experts, are listening to their constituents who may or may not have full information. Or like the vaccine thing, you have these celebrities who are coming on and, they're complaining, and the politicians are jumping behind the celebrities because it's like the popular thing to do. And, maybe you can find one or two doctors or scientists, if it's climate change, that will support, kind of the off-the-cuff comments that are being made. But I think, the majority of the medical community and the majority of what I've read, it's very evident that they believe and that they have empirical evidence that proves that these vaccinations don't cause autism. And so my thing is, you can't get, and I know if I had a child who had autism and it seems like that developed right after a vaccination, and I think there's a direct connection between the two, I can understand maybe getting emotional and, don't get your kids vaccinated because I guess I can understand that, but I just think it's so irresponsible, especially when there's so much evidence that proves that that's not the case. And you're not only endangering your kids if they're not vaccinated, you're endangering any young person that your kids come in contact with, and I just think that's irresponsible.
It definitely is. So it seems that a lot of people are just afraid based on rumors more than any sort of fact.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, and I like what you said about the Dutch having 100% of their population vaccinated, because I read a sort of study not too long ago that said about, I think, 70 to 80% of Americans or American children, something like that, are vaccinated. But in order to be truly effective, you need at least like 90, 95%. So judging by this, I think that we're at risk of some kind of at least small outbreak.
Yeah, and that's what's scary, because you do all you can, as a responsible citizen, as a responsible parent, to protect your kids. But then when you have people that, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, people who are irresponsible and don't have their kids vaccinated, and then it's, your kids are in danger along with their kids. And I don't think that's right.
Yeah. So based on all this, do you think that getting vaccinated is something that should possibly be enforced by law?
Well, I like what 501 does. Your kids have to be vaccinated, and if they're not vaccinated, you send notes home, and you try to do everything you can, and then if they still refuse to do it, then your child is not allowed back in school. And I think it should be law that we live in a democracy, and majority rules, and if the majority believes that these vaccinations ought to be done, I think it should be enforced. I really do.
Yeah, just like you said, most schools do. Like even the college that I plan on going to, University of Texas at Dallas, they require a meningitis vaccination in order to be accepted.
Well, good for them.
Yeah. So thank you for all your viewpoints on this. Do you have any final thoughts you'd like to add?
No, not really. I think we've kind of covered it all. My opinion is that there's empirical evidence out there that shows that these vaccinations don't cause autism. Whatever the reason that there seems to be a spike in autism here, over the last 10 or 15 years, I don't know what it is, but I think the evidence shows that it's not these vaccination packs.
Yes, and I completely agree. And when we come back, we will spend some time talking about the recent budget cuts that were made to Kansas schooling. Stick around for more of Topeka West Now on Topeka West TV.
Oh, look, a redhead.
Staring contest.
You still got it.
I know.
Come alive with the forest.
The dad was cute.
You were looking right at us.
Visit discovertheforest.org to find a forest near you.
It's a beautiful day out here. Sunny today with light breezes, giving way to clouds in the afternoon. We could see some light precipitation to moderate precipitation later on, followed by powerful storm-like conditions. 90 miles per hour winds are expected. Authorities are asking everyone, stay indoors. Come on, that's it. Let's go.
Today, 1 out of every 4 American kids is Hispanic. That means many of the future doctors who will care for us, the engineers who will build our cities, the scientists and entrepreneurs of our country can be your kids. We all know how hard it is for you to send them to college. This is why we want you to know you are not alone. And every day, more people support you to make it happen. Many support you. And the Hispanic Scholarship Fund helps you prepare, plan, and pay for your kids' college education.
Learn more at hsf.net.
Did you know kids who play outdoors have healthier lungs?
Totally.
Did you know that boys that play with dolls make better husbands?
My son has lots of dolls.
But did you know terry cloth diapers breathe better?
I did.
It's totally true.
Oh, yeah.
Did you guys know statistically friendly kids have more friends?
Yeah.
That's obvious.
Did you know most people think they're using the right car seat for their kid, but they're not?
Parents who really know it all know for sure that their child is in the right seat. Visit safercar.gov/the-right-seat to make sure your child is protected.
Welcome back to Topeka West Now. Our final topic is a local Kansas issue. Our governor, Sam Brownback, recently decided to make another round of budget cuts to Kansas schooling.
What do you think about Sam Brownback making budget cuts?
I honestly don't really pay much attention to any of that, so.
Oh, I could go on about that for a long, long time. When it comes down to it, that particular issue is... The man doesn't really have a firm grasp on what's really important in our state, and probably the future in general. There are a whole bunch of different problems with the current gubernatorial administration, but the most important thing is that he is not what's right for Kansas currently, and I don't think he's right for any government position.
I think it's horrible, and he should not have gotten reelected for governor.
Well, that's a complex question. First, the budget cuts that Sam Brownback made, he did unilaterally, so he didn't ask anybody about them. They were executive orders, which means he just did it, which is the same thing he did when he rescinded the LGBT hiring policy. So now people in the LGBT community can be discriminated against, so they can be hired and fired without being told why. So that's not what you asked me about, but it's the same concept. So I think although Sam Brownback has that right as the chief executive of our state, I think it's very undemocratic. Also, the budget that we currently have, or that we should have had before he made the cuts, and this is not the first round of cuts, right? So the budget that we were supposed to have was mandated by the Supreme Court in our state. So again, I think it's completely undemocratic.
This generation is the future, right? So why is he going to cut funds from us and make our education worse and fund other things?
Well, I wish he would use a little bit more. I think he needs to be a little bit more strategized about it. It seems to me like he's just doing a lot of things that, well, it didn't work, so I'll try this today, so I'll try this tomorrow, and you know, in a highly conservative state, I don't think that's very effective.
Okay, Mr. Perry, you've seen and heard the comments, and what is your reaction to this round of our campus's opinions?
Again, very insightful. You know, again, Ms. Sturgis, I know that she got a little off topic in her opinion, but I think that, you know, what she said is exactly right. That, you know, these executive orders that aren't voted on by, you know, our legislature, which hopefully are in line with their constituents around the state. I don't know. It's one of those, it hits so close to home, and it's as a person who's been teaching for a long time, and what budget cuts can lead to, and you don't know what all is going to happen, and when you look up, for me, it's looking at the reasons for the cuts in education is because we're trying to, put more money in the pockets of the wealthy. And, I don't know. The old saying, you can't rob Peter to pay Paul. It's anyway.
So how greatly do you foresee these changes possibly affecting Topeka West?
That's the thing. We don't know. We know how things are, where it's starting. And, to me, it's like a lot of our students aren't really going to feel a lot of the cuts right off the bat, because what teachers do is what we've always done is when they start taking, things from the school, then the teachers use their own money to supplement those things that have been taken away from the school.
And they're already paid less enough already.
Yeah, well, that's a discussion, I guess, for whatever. But it's, so the students don't always feel that, and so, when you want a Kleenex, there's Kleenexes because the teachers go out and buy them, and, that sort of thing. But the thing that frightens me is you don't know where it's going. There's so many rumors out there, things that you hear, things that you read, and I'm just, the type of person that if I hear something and it's of interest to me, I don't take what I hear and run with it. I want to go research it and find out. And so, there's some things that I've heard that I'm just waiting to get more information on. But it just sounds like the road we're going down is not a road that has the students' best interest at heart.
Yeah.
And that's just, again, my opinion. It doesn't seem that way to me.
Yeah, and so in your opinion, do you think there is another aspect of the government that could have received a cut more than the school should have?
No, I don't. See, that's the thing. We keep going back, and people want to call it Reaganomics, but, that, supply side economics, that goes back long before Reagan ever became president. And, the thought is if you leave more money in the hands or in the pockets of the wealthy, then that money is going to trickle down, going to create more jobs and do all these sort of things that are going to make the economy even better. And I think if you really look at it and you look at history, you find that doesn't work. And, I think what Governor Brownback is doing is he's trying to create these tax cuts that will, in his opinion, I think, and I hate to speak for him, but I think in his opinion, he thinks those tax cuts are going to put more money in the pockets of, the wealthy, and that money is going to trickle down. And, if you cut taxes and you use taxes to pay for, the bills, the bills are still there. So, something else has to go, and so I just, I don't know if there's cuts in other places. I'm not that intimate with, the Kansas budget. I just know that, in my opinion, not just what he's done or not just the way he's done it, but what he's doing, I just really feel like, the average Kansas young person is what they need is not what is at the forefront. I'm trying to say these things as diplomatic as I possibly can.
Yeah. So thank you for the discussion. So now that we reached the end of our show, it's time that we begin the lightning round.
Okay.
So the way this works is we have a few simple either-or questions for Mr. Perry to answer, just to get a better look at him as a person. And so, here we go.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, number 1. Do you consider yourself shaved or bald?
I consider myself shaved.
Okay. You feel better in a big city or a little town?
It depends on where this big city or little town is located, but I would say I feel probably more comfortable in a larger city.
As do I. So, are you an early bird or a night owl?
Very early bird.
Do you like to travel by sea or by air?
Air.
And do you like to watch Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network?
Neither one. I think you guys' cartoons are terrible.
Well, what about like classic cartoons?
Okay, classic cartoons, if they were on, yes, but Nickelodeon and the Cartoon Network, the cartoons that they pass on to that, those are terrible.
Yeah, I prefer like my 90s cartoons, you know?
Yeah, because you're a little younger than my children, but like Doug and Recess, those were cartoons.
Yeah, Invader Zim was my favorite. So, Mr. Perry, thank you very much for your viewpoints on these very important topics. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
So, is there anything else you'd like to add before we sign off?
Oh, just thanks again. I enjoyed our conversation. I enjoyed doing this, and a lot of fun.
Oh, of course. So thank you once again. And also thank you to Aaron Main for the student and staff interviews, as well as Dylan Lears, who is our video expert. This has been Topeka West Now. I'm Aidan Bly for Topeka West TV. See you next time. Well, that was fun.
Shaved your ball.